What if I told you there is a completely legal way for certain people to live extremely well, pay almost nothing in taxes, and pass enormous wealth to their children without the government ever taking a meaningful cut? No offshore accounts, no illegal tricks, no secret loopholes hidden in foreign countries. In fact, this system has been sitting in plain sight for more than 100 years. Most people assume that if someone gets rich enough, taxes eventually catch up with them, that at some point the bill comes due, that no one escapes forever. But for a small group of people, that moment never arrives. And once you understand how this works, you'll never look at money, taxes, or fairness the same way again. If you've ever wondered why some families seem to get richer every generation while others work their entire lives and still struggle, this is the explanation. Before we go any further, let me be very clear. This is not a strategy the average person can copy tomorrow. This is not something you can pull off with a small savings account. It requires serious wealth to execute properly, but understanding it changes everything about how you see the system. If this kind of clarity helps you think differently about money and the rules behind it, take a second to support the channel. A like helps this reach people who have never heard this explained honestly, and subscribing keeps you connected to content that actually breaks the game down. The strategy has a simple name: buy, borrow, die. It's not a loophole. It's a design choice in the tax code that rewards ownership over wages. 3 words that explain why the ultra-wealthy live by a completely different set of financial rules. Here's how it works. Instead of focusing on earning income that gets taxed immediately, wealthy individuals focus on owning assets. Assets that quietly increase in value over time without producing regular taxable income. Stocks that don't pay dividends, real estate that appreciates, private businesses, equity stakes, artwork and collectibles. This isn't accidental. It's how the tax code treats unrealized gains. The crucial detail most people never learn is this: as long as an asset increases in value and is not sold, there is no tax bill. Appreciation alone is not taxable. That's why 2 people can make the same amount in a year, and only one of them gets taxed. A portfolio can grow for decades while triggering 0 taxes. Now compare that to how most people earn money. You work, you get paid, and taxes are taken before the money even hits your account. Income tax, payroll tax, state tax, every step is taxed. The wealthy flip this completely. They let wealth grow first and worry about access later, which leads to the second part of the strategy. At some point, a reasonable question comes up. How do you live off assets you never sell? You can't buy groceries with unrealized gains. You can't hand a stock certificate to a car dealer. This is where the system becomes almost elegant. Once someone owns a large portfolio of appreciating assets, private banks are eager to lend against it using portfolio-backed lending products designed specifically for high-net-worth clients. Not credit cards, not personal loans, structured lending tied directly to investment portfolios. When a wealthy person borrows against their portfolio, something very important happens. Borrowed money is not income, and because it's not income, it is not taxed. So the richer you are, the easier it becomes to spend without earning, at least on paper. If someone borrows $1 million using their assets as collateral, that $1 million arrives tax-free. No income tax, no capital gains tax, no payroll tax, just cash. The terms are usually extremely favorable, lower interest rates than most people will ever see, high borrowing limits, flexible repayment options. In many cases, lenders are willing to advance 70% or more of the portfolio's value. Here's where the compounding advantage kicks in. While the loan exists, the underlying assets continue to grow. If the portfolio grows faster than the interest on the loan, wealth increases even while money is being spent. Debt stops being a burden and becomes a tool. As assets rise in value, borrowing capacity increases. Loans are refinanced. More capital becomes available. Lifestyle expenses are paid with borrowed money, while actual wealth remains untouched. This cycle can continue for decades. If this is making you rethink everything, comment the word rules so I know you're following and so more people actually see this. At this point, most people think this has to end badly. What happens when the loans pile up? What happens when the person dies? And this is where the story stops being clever and starts being shocking. When someone passes away, their assets are transferred to their heirs through an estate transfer rule called stepped-up basis. Under current tax law, inherited assets are revalued at their current market price. All previous gains disappear for tax purposes. If an asset was bought for $100 and is worth $1,000 at death, the heir inherits it as if it was purchased for $1,000. Those gains are never taxed. Not later, not ever. If there are outstanding loans, the heirs can sell part of the portfolio to pay them off. And because of stepped-up basis, there is no capital gains tax on that sale. The debt disappears, the assets remain, the wealth transfers cleanly. Let's put this into a realistic example. Meet Daniel. Daniel builds $1 million over 20 years through business ownership. Instead of spending it, he invests it into appreciating assets and leaves them untouched. Over the next decade, that portfolio grows steadily and approaches $2 million. Selling it would trigger a massive tax bill, so he doesn't sell. He borrows against it instead. He uses portfolio-backed loans to fund his lifestyle, pays interest that is far smaller than the tax he avoided, and allows the portfolio to keep compounding in the background. Over the next 20 years, the cycle repeats. Loans are refinanced. Borrowing increases. Daniel lives comfortably without ever triggering a taxable income event. When Daniel eventually passes away, his portfolio is worth several $1 million. His heirs sell part of it to clear the loans. No capital gains tax is owed. What remains becomes a clean inheritance. Daniel started with $1 million. His family ends up with far more. And the total tax paid on decades of wealth growth is effectively zero. Meanwhile, someone earning income the traditional way pays taxes at every step. When they earn, when they invest, when they sell. The difference is not effort, it's structure. This system scales aggressively. The more wealth someone has, the cheaper money becomes. Larger portfolios get better rates, higher limits, and more flexibility. Banks compete harder the richer you are. Over generations, this creates dynastic wealth. Each generation inherits assets tax-free, continues the cycle, and passes on even more. Families relying on earned income never get access to this loop. They are taxed constantly. The wealthy are taxed conditionally, and often not at all. This explains why raising tax rates rarely affects the ultra-wealthy. If income is never realized, tax rates don't matter. If assets are never sold, capital gains taxes don't apply. The system isn't broken by accident. It's working exactly as designed. Understanding this can feel frustrating, even unsettling. But clarity matters, because once you understand the rules, you stop blaming yourself for outcomes that were never evenly distributed. If this explanation helped you see the financial world more clearly, let me know in the comments. Awareness is the first step towards smarter decisions. This isn't about anger. It's about understanding the game. Now you know why some people never sell, never earn, and still live better than most workers ever will.